For the warning essay, it's the warning report. This is an argumentative style essay. And as such, there is a general format that we would typically use. Now, this is not saying that there are no other ways to do this kind of an essay, but this is typically the way that is the most successful. Like every essay, I'm going to do this, and you should recognize this from every other essay, the upside down triangle, and that represents the introduction. We're going to have a thesis statement. And take a look at the video I have specifically on argumentative thesis statements and on thesis statements in general to get a better idea of thesis statements. The introduction, it's not going to get into the nitty-gritty, it's not going to get into the facts, it's not going to get into the argument, it's simply going to introduce the topic that you're going to discuss. So just go from broad to specific, starting in a very general way and working your way to the thesis statement, which is the most specific thing you're going to say. The thesis statement is the argument that you're making. It is absolutely the truth that you're going to demonstrate. The rest of the essay, the only reason the rest of the essay even exists is to prove this thesis statement is true. Now, in your essay, you're going to have, the majority of your essay is the body of your essay, okay? And there are three major aspects that you should have in an argumentative essay. So I'm going to divide this up into three parts. Now, please don't for just any time at all think that I'm saying you only need 3 paragraphs in your essay. If you only have 3 paragraphs in this essay, it's going to fall short. You're not going to be able to finish it. It's not going to be good. Okay, so I'm just saying 3 major tasks that you'll do. One is context. So for any argument, again, you have to assume your audience is either unfamiliar with the issue or your audience is on the other side of this issue. In both cases, you need to convey an objective account of the situation. So in this case, whatever issue that you believe is an issue that's coming up, it's coming, down the line, you see it in the future, it's going to affect your industry. Whatever that issue is, you need to be able to explain it and explain it very well. And that means you're not going to go on and on and on and on and on forever about it, but you need to provide your audience, the audience members who are reading this, who are unfamiliar with it, you need to provide them with enough information so that they feel comfortable making a decision to follow your advice or not. You also need to provide enough objective information to prove to those people who disagree with you that you at least have a functional knowledge of the subject. I will, and I think this is a very human thing, if I disagree with someone, but I don't feel like they have any idea what they're talking about, I'm not going to even take the time to argue with them. I may, I don't know, if I am in a mood, maybe I'll take the time to educate them or whatever, but but it's not going to be a fruitful conversation. So you need to prove to your reader, first of all, this is the issue, okay? And I'll give you an objective account. So none of my own opinions. And this would be the first part of your essay. So this is just the facts. This is really just not getting into your argument just yet. But this is the problem. This is the issue. These are some things that can happen. So this part is a lot like your analysis essay. Now it should not be multiple paragraphs, but maybe 3 paragraphs could be dedicated, at least 1, but multiple paragraphs could be dedicated to explaining why this is an issue, what's going on, because you're warning your company. You're saying this is an issue that you may or may not be aware of. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. The next portion is generally the longest portion. So this portion here is the actual argument. This is where you are going to say, okay, I've explained this issue, now you know about it, and for the next how many ever paragraphs you feel like you need, I'm going to explain to you why my solution, my thesis, is the best solution for this problem. So you're going to have multiple reasons. You should have a lot of reasons why that is the best solution to this problem. and you're going to give that. And it should be multiple paragraphs. The majority of your essay should be the argument portion. The last portion will be your refutation. Okay, and the refutation is something oftentimes people get a little confused about. Let me give you just, and it's really not confusing. You can all do this, and you all do this on a regular basis. When it comes to the refutation, essentially you want to give, first of all, just think about this. Think about this. You are making an argument, but you can't see or hear your reader. So hopefully you cover everything in the context really well, and hopefully you provide enough good reasons why your solution is the best solution. But you have to realize there's going to be something that you probably didn't cover, or there might be something that your audience is like, yeah, but what about this? I get what you're saying here, but what about this issue? You didn't, how do you overcome this problem with your argument? Now, in the refutation, we try to predict what the audience is going to say. And essentially what we're doing is we're trying to predict an objection that the audience might have to your thesis or to your argument. So you do need to think, okay, when I'm thinking about the objections, what does the other side normally say to this argument? Or what might someone who disagree with me, what might that person say to me to say, yeah, but what about this? And so that's what you overcome in the refutation. So a refutation paragraph should start off simply saying, possibly, you might say, there are many who might say that, this argument, wouldn't work because, and then you give whatever you think that objection might be. So for instance, perhaps you might say, there are many people who believe that Subaru should not make an electric car because, and then give those reasons, all right? And then after that sentence or two stating the opposition's opinion, the rest of the paragraph should be dedicated to overcoming that objection. Or, at very least, acknowledging the objection as reasonable and saying, yes, that is true, but in most cases, my solution will work. So you either completely overcome the objection, or you say, okay, or basically, if you don't overcome the objection, you're going to provide enough evidence that it's not strong enough, that the objection is not strong enough to completely refute your argument. So, for instance, maybe, and I'm going to make just kind of a ridiculous example here, but perhaps your refutation paragraph might say something like this. Maybe your main argument is that Subaru should improve the safety belts. So, or safety belts should be improved, or here, I'll even make something outside of your situation. Maybe you're just simply arguing people should use seat belts. Okay, that's your main thesis. People should always wear safety belts every time they drive. Okay, great. So you provide context information about safety belts and the information, when they start to be used, what are the statistics that people generally cite whenever talk about are they effective, and then you say these are the reasons why, again, we should always wear safety belts. Well, you get down here, and there's going to be somebody who's going to say, yes, safety belts are good, but there are a lot of times whenever a person shouldn't wear a safety belt, because sometimes safety belts trap you inside your car and you can burn to death and you can't get out. And oftentimes if people live through a car accident because they weren't wearing their safety belt. And if they were wearing the safety belt, they probably would have died because they wouldn't have been ejected from the car. Okay? And then you probably heard someone make that kind of an argument. Well, you say, okay, remembering that this is the thesis that I'm coming back with, I might say, yes, there are some times when a safety belt can cause more harm to a person than good. Okay, I'll give you that. There are some cases where if a person had been wearing a seatbelt, they wouldn't have been ejected from the car, and they would have been caught in a burning car and died. This is true. However, in most cases, safety belts are safe and effective, and in most cases, they've been shown to improve a person's survivability through a car accident. And then maybe after that, I would give maybe I did a little research. Maybe I would say, in fact, Dr. So-and-so of this institution states, and maybe I will quote him to give my refutation some weight, to really back up me saying, yeah, I understand what you're saying. There are some cases where safety belts, can cause harm and they don't work, or maybe there are issues where safety belts aren't always 100% effective. However, according to this institute, they are more effective than not, and they're still, basically I'm saying, yeah, I get what you're saying, but in most cases, my thesis statement is still correct. And what you're saying is still not a big enough or a good enough reason for us not to follow my thesis. Okay, having said that, once you finish that refutation paragraph, and really you only need one paragraph for your refutation. If you do more than one paragraph, that means you'll have more than one thing that you're overcoming. Okay, so that means, maybe there's two objections that you can predict. Well, that means you'll need, if you're going to overcome two possible objections from your reader, you'll need two refutation paragraphs. Having said that, once you're done with that, you've completed all these things, you'll have a conclusion, and in the conclusion, you reflect what you said in the introduction, and you give a basic, you will paraphrase your thesis statement. So you'll say your thesis statement again, but in other words, and you'll remind your audience of, again, the reasons why your thesis is correct. Okay, so having said that, that is the basic outline of the tasks that you need to do in your essay. So you need to plan your paragraphs out. You need to make an outline, plan out those paragraphs as best you can, remembering that you do need to provide some objective information. You'll need to make your argument well, and you'll need to overcome possible objections.